I'm starting to read about the Roman Republic. There was the Roman Kingdom, I think, then the Roman Republic, then the Roman Empire. I started reading about the collapse of civilization, and there are a lot of parallels. But the interesting thing is everybody seems to think that we're on the verge of the collapse of the Roman Empire as opposed to the collapse of the Roman Republic. Basically, Caesar crosses the Rubicon, and then you get, 2 centuries of empire. We as the United States, we're kind of empire, I suppose. But it's not like we have direct administrative control over everywhere that we have troops or anything like that. So I'm thinking that the next move we're likely to see, if we were to follow the trajectory of Rome, is you've got the Roman Kingdom, the British Empire, the British Kingdom. We break away as the United States, build this big nation, the Republic, and now we go into an empire of some sort. Somebody crosses the Rubicon, takes over, and then it's 2 centuries of peace and stability. Yeah, I know. You're probably thinking like, dude, what does that have to do with this giant big-tittied teacher? Okay. Here's the story from Redux. Ontario high school teacher seen wearing massive prosthetic bust to teach. Yeah, these are massive, like what, quadruple F or something. This is a biologically male teacher who identifies as a woman and wears gigantic, and I mean it, like these are very massive fake breasts. And the first thing I think isn't, oh, won't someone think of the children? It's not, oh, wow, these people, something is wrong. It is, are we facing the collapse of the Republic? Are we going to go into the Dark Ages or something? What's coming next? Because we cannot survive as a culture. And I know this is Canada, but as Western culture, we're not going to survive. Maybe the argument is you had the British Kingdom and then there's a republic, which it's not all the same because America is not Britain, but the British Empire is collapsing. I don't know what to say, man. I look at a story like this and I'm just like, okay, the end is nigh. The end is nigh. There's photos. Photos and videos out of a Canadian high school are going viral as they show a male teacher wearing what appears to be large prosthetic breasts in full view of young students. Shocking media first began to circulate on Twitter earlier this week, with multiple accounts sharing a mobile phone video and stills of a shop teacher demonstrating how to use a circular drill. The teacher is seen wearing an extremely prominent prosthetic bust, one which clearly outlines the nipples through his tight shirt. He is donning a bright blonde wig and shorts. Multiple photos and videos have surfaced of the same individual instructing young students, and in all of them, he is wearing the oversized bust. The media has been confirmed as originating from Oakville Trafalgar High School in Oakville, Ontario. The man seen in the photos and videos is manufacturing technology instructor who allegedly began identifying as a woman last year. The teacher now goes by the name Kayla Lemieux. Now, typically, I would have no problem using the pronouns of an individual identifying in such a way, but this is not confirmed yet. We don't know a whole lot. All we have now are just photos of what appears to be a male wearing massive, oversized fake breasts in front of children. Quote, "The kids here most definitely don't think it's normal, but realistically, we can't say anything," one student said on Twitter. "Last year, the teacher was a man. I don't think the school can fire him." Lemieux is listed within the faculty directory on the OTHS website. His official school email address is also connected to a Google account, which has a photo visually verifying his identity. However, this one is clearly just CGI, and this is we got to talk about identity issues, man. We got a lot of stuff going on with exploitation of kids, but I want to talk about identity as well. This photo being shown attached to the email is clearly not the individual in question. The individual is wearing tons of makeup and prosthetic fake breasts, but the image being shown is clearly some kind of gender swap facial filter to make the individual look more female. Redux reached out to OTHS administrators for comment, and they did confirm that Lemieux is currently employed at the school but refused any other questions. Oakville Trafalgar High School is overseen by the Halton District School Board, which has recently begun promoting gender identity ideology in schools in recent years. In October 2021, HDSB released guidelines regarding gender identity and gender expression in schools. The Halton District School Board recognizes the rights of students, staff, parents, guardians, and community members to equitable treatment without discrimination based upon gender identity and gender expression. The HDSB is committed to establishing and maintaining a safe, caring, inclusive, equitable, and welcoming learning and working environment for all members of the school community, including staff, who identify as or are perceived as trans, and those who are questioning their sexual orientation and or gender identities. Well, okay. All right. I mean, here's the images of the individual in question. And I think, look, I brought this up a few years ago and I was told I was wrong. I was told by a lawyer I was wrong. I will say it again. I was told by a lawyer I was wrong. I was right. So don't come at me with that stuff. Okay? I warned about this. Let me explain how things are going. You're a business, particularly a public institution, no less. And I also want to point out something, real quick here in this photograph. Something that I don't know what it means. Why, there's an image up here on the shelf in the classroom, and it shows a spiral square. I don't know much about it. I'm just going to say that. I don't know what that means. I've seen that pop up in conspiracy theory forums. I don't know enough about it to comment other than whatever. Here's what I want to tell you. Let me go back for a second. You're a business. You have insurance. This is what people need to understand. It's all about the insurance. And you have some employees. It's a diverse set of employees. And all of a sudden you get sued. And someone says that they identify as something or other, and that someone made disparaging comments, and now you're being sued. So you as a business hearing this, you think, what can I do? Your insurance company says, have you done diversity trainings? And you go, what's that? And they say, you need to do it now. And they say, okay. This is what people need to get about businesses. The insurance company will say, we need every legal defense possible. It is in the law to defend, gender identity is protected in many states. If you do not protect this, then we can't pay your insurance claims if someone comes, So what happens is insurance companies will say, if you don't do this, we'll drop you. The business says, well, we have to have insurance. So they do the diversity, inclusivity, and equity trainings. And nobody likes it, but that's the way it works because of the subversion. You have these Democrat activists, they changed the law, and now the businesses all must be forced to do things no one expected. And this is where you get. This is what you get. This is where you go. Let me tell you about what happened with New York, because many of you probably know the story. If you watch all of my videos, some of you probably don't. New York protects all gender identities. And gender identity is legally defined as self-expression, because how else would you define it? They say that you can't discriminate against someone based on the clothing they wear, the name they use. And so I called a human rights lawyer. And I said, I gotta ask you about this, because, we're talking about textualism versus, what's the other one? I can't remember. Textualism is when you just read the text of the law and you're like, that's what it says. And I said, if gender identity is self-expression, and that means I can wear whatever I want and call myself whatever I want, what's to stop me from dressing up like a giant wolf and calling myself Vociferon, Herald of the Winter Mists? And I think I talked to 3 different lawyers, and they all laughed and said, are you kidding me with that? They weren't snarky to me. They were like, look, you're not going to go into a courtroom and tell a judge that your gender identity is Vociferon. They're going to laugh you out of the courtroom. The gender identity laws are to protect trans people, and that's patently obvious. The judges exist to interpret the law so that when someone comes in with obviously frivolous or exploitative charges or claims, the judge can say this is clearly not what was intended. So I asked a variety of other questions about what if I wore something obnoxious? How far down can you go? What's the line? And, well, they just said, you're not going to pass the laugh test. And that is, will people laugh at this? When the person walks into the court, is the judge going to laugh? My response? If the judge finds it funny that I dress up like a giant wolf, and that's how I identify, then what's to stop any other judge from finding it funny when a man dresses up like a woman? What is the distinct legal difference? No answer, because there isn't one. You can say, well, women wear dresses. I say men wear kilts. So what if a judge laughs at a kilt? It's functionally the same thing, isn't it? Well, okay, well, but it's a wolf costume. Can I go to the Halloween store and buy a nurse costume? Big, busty, sexy vampire? I can do that too, right? Tell me what the legal definition distinction is. They can't. They simply told me that it wouldn't pass the laugh test, and that if someone did something that was overly obnoxious, that would be shocking to the average person or would be perceived as more of a costume, the judge would probably throw it out. I give you Canada, where an individual wears massive fake breasts. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to people, but these are inhuman. I mean, there are people who have breasts this large. I understand, but is this identity? Okay. Far be it from me to tell people who voted for this stuff how to live their lives. And honestly, to this guy, more power to him. Maybe it's just not appropriate in schools, but therein lies the real question. What is? Well, here's what it'll come down to. If there was a biological human female who had breasts this large, could they discriminate against her? The answer is no. And I've certainly seen my share of fat, busty teachers. They exist. There are women who walk around with big old, breasts. So what can they really say to a man who dresses up in such a way? Nothing. Now, you may say that the vociferon thing still does cross a different line. Humans aren't animals. But we are certainly getting to that point with transracialism. Let me show you this. Transracial identity. It's a Wikipedia article. Transracial people identify as a different race than the one associated with their biological ancestry. And why could they not? If your genetics define you as male or female, then why could you not be transracial? Rachel Dolezal. It's really amazing. She's a white woman who identifies as black. She's not. In addition to claiming black ancestry, she also claimed Native American descent. Well, okay. She was a former NAACP chapter president. That's amazing. But what are you going to do? If the law says gender identity is your self-expression, then race falls under that category as well. And there have been several instances. I think Brown University said you can identify as whatever race you want. In which case, what? Then how is anyone protected if anyone can be whatever they want? I'm sorry. Rachel Dolezal's current name is Nkechi Amare Diallo, not Rachel Ann Dolezal. Oh, is it? I didn't realize she changed her name. To what extent do we have to participate in the identity of individuals who are clearly one thing but identify as another? To what extent do we allow our children to be exposed to people who do such a thing? I think there are a lot of questions here, and I don't know how to solve the problem. I don't know how to rectify the issue. Let's call it that. Should these students just say, I don't want to be here anymore? It's tough. But let me tell you the direction this country is heading. I'm going to stress this again. If you are on Patreon, you are an insane person. Sorry. Just recently, I got an email and they were like, someone got banned from Patreon. Tim, will you speak up? No, I won't. Dude, people have come to me and been like, Patreon is banning someone. And I'm like, oh, really? When they first went after Lauren Southern, we all kind of went like, yo, that was cold. Because she wasn't given warning. Then they banned Carl Benjamin of the Lotus Eaters podcast because a year earlier he said a naughty word on someone else's YouTube live stream. And that's when there was a mass exodus from Patreon because they promised they would give warning and a strike system. Take a look at this. Patreon fires security staff amid allegations of protecting maps. Oh, maps. Oh, is that what you call them? Maps. Yeah, I call them pedophiles. Sickening. A Glassdoor review by a former Patreon employee is going viral on TikTok following news. Patreon abruptly fired their entire security team. The ex-employee alleged that the company was forcing trust and safety team members to overlook pedophilic content on the platform and protect minor attracted people. On September 8th, Emily Metcalf, a now former security and privacy engineer at Patreon, posted to LinkedIn that the entire Patreon security team had been abruptly let go. Quote, so for better or for worse, I and the rest of the Patreon security team are no longer with the company. Metcalf wrote, soliciting leads on new roles within the industry. Metcalf's post went viral after a screenshot was shared to Twitter by information security lawyer Whitney Merrill. While people were initially skeptical of the news, Patreon confirmed the news the next day in a statement issued to Cyberscoop, claiming they decided to cut their internal security team in favor of third-party solutions. The changes made this week will have no impact on our ability to continue providing secure and safe platform for our creators. But following the abrupt decision, an ex-employee statement from August began to circulate and raise alarm bells. On August 16th, the former trust and safety specialist at Patreon took to job review platform Glassdoor to allege that Patreon had demonstrated negligence with regards to child safeguarding in a review simply titled illegal. The former employee who worked at Patreon for over a year claimed platform management had actively encouraged safety staff to overlook pedophilic content unless ordered to do otherwise by law enforcement. Quote, "We are being told specifically by management and executives not to take down content that is illegal or is reported as sexual in nature involving minors unless the police make contact with legal or we have an order by a court," the ex-employee wrote. When others try to inform management that there's an amalgamation of accounts that are selling lewd photographs or what appear to be children, all concerns are dismissed. Disturbingly, the review goes on to note that Patreon higher-ups are advocating for customers who are minor-attracted persons and concludes by saying, this is no way to run a company. This is no way to allow children to be exploited on a platform like this. I'm going to try and keep myself calm, but it's happening right in front of your eyes. Can I just jump back to this photo here? Again, there's an image up here of a square spiral image. I don't know exactly what that means. I've just seen it circulate in conspiracy threads, and I have to wonder. If the conspiracy theorists have been right about so much, maybe there's something to that symbol. I don't know. All I know is I've seen it somewhere, and I can't remember exactly where or how or why. All I know is I've seen people on Twitter posting about it. That's it. Maybe it's nothing. I don't know. Nothing. What can I say? Honestly, don't know. I don't know. I just remember seeing it in association with conspiracy theories or something. Maybe it's nothing. The review first came to widespread attention after being posted to TikTok by Ben Hughes, who slammed Patreon for its lack of child safeguarding measures. Hughes' video quickly racked up over 160,000 views. But another TikToker's experience with Patreon is now at the forefront of the discussion, as she claims Patreon had done precisely what the former employee alleged and ignored her reports of pedophilic content. Let me show you this story from NBC News. Texas teacher on administrative leave after telling students to call pedos minor attracted persons. Okay. So, anyway, I've been reading about the fall of the Roman Empire, the Dark Ages, and then eventually the emergence of the, disparate nations. You had the Dutch colonies, you had France, you had, Spain. It's really, really interesting stuff. It's all one big chain, We should teach our kids more about this. And I mean kids, because it should be like grade school stuff. The Roman Kingdom, the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire. It's fascinating. How did it all come crashing down? We liken ourselves to the Roman Empire, but I believe we are wrong. I believe we are more akin to the Roman Republic, rife with corruption. And there will come a time when one faction crosses the Rubicon, and you get the American Empire. If it were to follow suit with Rome, that's what we would see. As I mentioned, we were under a monarchy. We broke away and formed a republic about 200 so years, and maybe now someone will cross the Rubicon. Maybe it will be Trump. Maybe Trump will step in and say the corruption must be stopped, and we will get 2 centuries of peace and prosperity. And other such problems, I know. Most of the expansions of the Roman Empire happened during the Roman Republic. Interestingly, what's happening right now with U.S. military bases around the world happened at the time when we were a republic. Many people call us empire and all that. So what do I see? Maybe it's the fall of the empire. I don't know. Maybe what we're starting to see is the corruption of the republic. And eventually someone will cross the Rubicon. Maybe it was Trump. Maybe January 6th will be throughout history described as a crossing of the Rubicon. I certainly don't think it's anywhere near as serious. Crossing of the Rubicon was Caesar and his army entering, into Rome. But maybe something will happen soon. I don't know. I can tell you this, either that or we just fall. There's a collapse coming because we can't live this way. We just can't. People are going to lose their minds. People are losing their minds. There's violence. Children being targeted. There's no seemingly cohesive structure to all of this. As I mentioned with calling the human rights lawyers, you had a moral system, a culture, a community, scruples. People said, here's what we stand for and what we don't. We ended racial segregation in bathrooms and public accommodation, but we kept gender segregation despite the fact the law says you can't discriminate on either category. Why? Morals and values. Everyone agreed men and women should be separate. That is being dissolved. And now you're seeing people say that, they should be able to wear massive, gigantic, fake tits in front of high school kids. Okay. At a certain point, the idea of a logic-based moral system fails, and this is why. We used to have a values-based moral system. Our values dictated our morals. Or I should say, I'm trying to articulate this, and I'm probably doing a poor job. Probably it dictated our laws. A value-based law system or a logic-based law system. That's probably a better way to frame it. With a logic legal system, they just say 1 + 1 = 2. You can't segregate, then you can't segregate. Everybody uses one bathroom. A value-based legal system says, yeah, we're trying to be fair, but we agree we're not going to put men and women in the same place. It's all coming crashing down, isn't it? I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.